Welcome to the Leadmore podcast. I'm your host, John T. Meyer. Now, the Leadmore podcast, of course, is the show where we learn from the leaders of today to help inspire and create more leaders for tomorrow. Because I believe the world needs more leaders. In today's show, we have a great leader for you to meet. Her name is Giorgi, the CEO of Soona. Her story is fantastic. She started out as a journalism major because she wanted to be the next Barbara Walters. And as life so has it, she ended up as the CEO of a software company. So Liz shares that story. She talks about her first exposure and inspiration to entrepreneurship was actually from her grandfather, who ran a canoe outfitter in northern Minnesota. Liz talks about her unique relationship with her co-founder and how leaders who lead together need to learn and set expectations so that they're on the same page. Really great advice that I took some notes on that section. And then also I loved her part about what CEO truly means. If you are a CEO, what it really means is you cheerlead at every opportunity. I thought that was a great acronym. You're gonna love the conversation with Liz. She's honest, she's blunt, she's real, and she was really inspiring. So let's get right to it. All right, welcome to the Leadmore podcast. I'm here with Giorgi. Liz, how are you today?
I'm excited to be here and ready for this conversation.
Awesome. Well, let's just dive right in. Tell us, I can resonate. I was inspired by you as a founder of a creative agency. That's where you, well, that's not where you got your start. You were had a journalism degree, right?
Yes, I went to the University of Minnesota. I wanted to be Barbara Walters. That was my life aspiration. I had absolutely zero interest in marketing, advertising, any of those things. In fact, I don't even think I knew what advertising was when I went to college.
Sure.
I really just wanted to be like Barbara. I wanted to ask tough questions to important people, and I wanted to be somehow involved in storytelling, which I felt like television was the most obvious way to do that. And so I went to become her, and I very quickly realized I was not going to become her. So I had a lot of starts and stops, but I think probably as it pertains to this show, the thing that really drew me into marketing and the thing that drew me into advertising was actually getting to know YouTube. I fell in love with the platform. I fell in love with how it could reach anyone, anywhere. And in 2011, they started monetizing the platform and very quickly realized, oh, we could use this to tell lots of people lots of different types of stories. And so got very fascinated in using it to promote some of the programs I was working on. Eventually went and worked at a now defunct ad agency, but helped them with some of their YouTube strategy and digital strategies. And that it was all just kind of accidental. It was following what I was interested in at the time and what was calling to me at the time. It seems to be one of the things I'm best at is being aware of where I want to put my energy.
Yeah. What do you gut check that, or how do you know when it is something that you know is something worth pursuing? Because I think that's a tough thing when we all have shiny object syndrome, right?
Yeah. The way I describe it to people is anything that you feel called to, you have a gut intuition towards, is something you should keep following. And anything that you never get bored of while you're doing it is what you should keep doing. So cool. It's okay to keep following something and then realize I don't want to do it. But once you're doing something and you realize, oh, I never noticed time. I never noticed that this is annoying me. Those are the things you should stick with.
Yeah, those things you get in and 4 hours later, you put your head up and you're like, whoa.
And I'm actually a funny demographic because I still love YouTube. Isn't that funny? Like, I don't know many people my age who still love YouTube, but I watch YouTube every day. It's on the homepage of my phone. I'm a YouTube person. I don't know. It's always been interesting to me. So I've always leaned into it.
So it seems like with that journalism background, you kind of figure out how to specifically create content for the web, for YouTube. And when did the light bulb say, I want to run my own business?
My grandfather was clearly the match that lit the flame of entrepreneurship, because I grew up in a family that had a business. So my grandfather had a canoe outfitter in northern Minnesota in the Boundary Waters. I spent my childhood watching him, prepare canoes, plan trips. I watched my mom pack lunches. I watched my grandmother tend the books. Like, I watched the family run this business. I never connected, believe it or not, as a child, this to me was how we spent time together. I never connected that this was how we paid bills, that this was how we made money. it was completely abstract to me. So I just had an earnest connection to the canoe outfitter. I think when my grandfather died in 2013, I was spending a lot of time in northern Minnesota with my family and reflecting on what were the things that made me happy? What were the things that I felt I shared with my grandfather? My grandfather was such a huge force in my life because I was his only granddaughter. He had many grandsons. I was the only granddaughter. And we spent many an hour in the back of a canoe with him telling me, you know, the world is changing. Women are going to have a different place. Your life doesn't need to look like what your grandmother's life looked like. You should aspire to whatever you want to aspire to. And he was really the first male feminist I had in my life. And when he passed, I really felt called to live up to his aspirations for me. And
that's so cool.
Before I knew it, I was starting a business without any idea what I was doing at all.
Well, you did say before we hit record that you went to business school, so you weren't like, or was
but
that
I did
later?
it halfway through starting a business. So this is the thing. I was 3 years into my first business when I realized I don't understand how we're making money or how any of this works. I should probably go to business school. So it was just a happenstance of timing where my brother was living in Boston, getting his master's degree at Harvard. And I had a place I could crash for the intensive program to go to Babson College. So I would go stay with my brother for a week. I'd do an intensive week of classes, and then I'd come home, run my business, and do my classes online at night. I did this for almost 2 years. It was hell. It was so hard, but it just worked out with the fact that my brother was doing his time in Massachusetts as well. And so we had this perfect alignment and symmetry. And I knew that I needed to level myself up if I was going to be successful. I didn't want to, it's really funny. I know a lot of people are watching The Last Dance right now. And the way that I describe it to folks is I have always felt inside like I'm a Michael Jordan. I don't want to be Scottie Pippen. I don't want to be Dennis Rodman. I want to be a Michael Jordan. I want to be the person that sets the bar and says, we're going for this level of excellence. And so I didn't want to run a business that was crappy. I wanted to run a business that was good, that was well regarded and well respected and well run and was excellent. And that was really the impetus to get my education.
So do you think it was worth it? I feel like in the startup world now, there's all these takes on like whether you should go to business school or not.
Oh my God, it was so worth it. Listen, you cannot phase me now. It's so funny how much more confidence I have about writing a budget, looking at the P&L, understanding the sales numbers, being really clear on what channels are working, not working, what data analysis we need to perform, assessing the data. These skills are so essential to running a business. I had none of them. And I think sometimes in businesses we say, well, you can hire out finance, or you can hire out business intelligence, or you can hire out marketing. You can, but if you want to be a great leader that allows people to live up to their highest potential, you got to be able to meet them on their level. And so I feel like one of my talents now is being able to really meet people on their level and then help them level up to the next spot.
That's good. So I don't want to gloss over Mightior because, it's part of your story, but I do have other stuff I want to get to. So you started this agency, which is a video production company. Yeah.
Yeah. Video production for the web. That was it. Basic idea.
And so but then eventually let's talk about how then you went from there to now Soona. So where along that journey did this idea start to like kind of creep up in your brain, or what made you think, hey, I've already got one great business, but there's something else that's calling me or pulling me forward?
Yeah, isn't life so funny? At Mightior, we started working with Facebook, and they very quickly became one of our biggest clients. And we were developing a lot of campaigns for their internal initiatives, which gave us access to, and we were developing a lot of programming for Facebook Watch and things like that. So we were getting a lot of access to the data and the information about how much people were watching, what were they looking at, what content was truly moving the needle for brands. And I just really became fascinated by how content hungry those systems were. I mean, Facebook and Instagram are so content hungry that the churn on an average piece of media is about 10 days. So if you think about, I put together this piece of media and now that piece of media is kind of extinct. It has no value on the platform in 10 days. That's bonkers. And I just thought, it takes us 3 months to put together a good piece of content at My Dear. And that's not bad. That's good. Like that's a pretty decent timeline. But the world of video production and the way that we were approaching it was very much based on this idea of very traditional production timelines, very traditional production flows. And my insight was very clear to me. There's no company right now that can, other than stock content companies, that can meet the demands of the churn of this content on these platforms. And they're not going anywhere. They're going to be the biggest platforms. It took a really long time for that insight to turn into anything useful. I mean, and this is one of the things that I try to tell people is that ideas aren't businesses. So that's an idea. There's no company that keeps up with the churn, right? But it's actually how that idea comes into execution and how that idea solves the problem that becomes a business. That's the difference. And so my co-founder Haley and I were on vacation together in Palm Springs. We were hiking through Joshua Tree.
Is she your co-founder at My Dear, or is she a co-founder for both?
Funny enough, I hired her at My Dear to build an animation department for me.
Okay.
So we had been working together for 3 years. We realized very quickly we were awesome friends. I always say she's my creative soulmate. I mean, I can write a script, she will make it reality. It was always an incredible partnership, and a partnership that to this day is, I always say to my husband, I love you very much, but this relationship came first. Like it's such a big relationship in my life.
Sure.
And it's a great blessing that all of our partners get along, because otherwise we'd have real trouble. So she and I worked together for 3 years. We were great teammates. And so I just knew that there was going to be something else for us, that there was going to be another step in what we were going to do together and what we could achieve together. But it just hadn't become clear. We're on this hike and we're just kind of saying like, well, how do we solve the problem? Like, let's just play it out. Let's play out. How do you create content fast enough, professional levels of content, and make it so that it works in this ecosystem? And we had 2 insights. The first was Kinko's. It was just Kinko's made printing accessible quickly at a really scalable level in the 80s. And when people hear me say this, they laugh at me because they're like, literally Kinko's, it's so lame. But what you have to understand is at the time, and timing is everything, that was pretty crazy. That was a big advancement.
Sure.
The second was Chipotle. And the reason Chipotle is because Chipotle has this ethos of, we have everything we need here in the store right now to give you beautiful food for an affordable price. So these 2 things we kept thinking, and we kept writing down, well, what's good about them? What's not good about them? What makes sense? Eventually, we started bringing in other people. We talked to some technologists, we talked to some engineers, and before we knew it, we had the basic prototype of Soona, which is camera to cloud, which sits underneath our production experience, and it makes it possible for our end customer to see every photo and video clip as it's created, and to be able to make instant actions such as purchasing them so that we can put them into post-production workflows. So this to us was how we would solve the speed question. And that's what we continue to solve and add on to today.
That's so cool. I love that camera to cloud. So what's, if someone says the 15-second elevator pitch, how do you describe Soona?
Soona is a fast casual content company that makes it possible for brands to get professional and affordable photo and video online through virtual photo shoot experiences, and all for the less than the price of stock, and always delivered in 24 hours.
There you go. Sounds like you've done that a couple times.
I've done that so many times at this point that it starts to feel like I'm saying my own name over and over and over again.
Fast casual. So you literally took the Chipotle parts. You're like literally.
Yeah, I love fast casual because I think it implies so much. It tells you this is not a stuffy experience. This is quick. This is easy. It's painless. All those things.
Sure. Cool. So this is a good segue then, because with that nailing down that elevator pitch, I'm guessing you must have raised some money for Soona or no? Okay.
I've raised a little over $5 million now for Soona.
Wow.
Between our venture rounds, yes. And we will, I'm sure, be raising again very soon.
That's good. That's good then. So with that, if you raised, I want to talk about one of the things that I admire you as a leader is how you can use your business for good, not just for making money. And so tell us about the candor clause, because when I first found you, I started reading about that. And obviously you've done fundraising, and this is something that's really important to you and the message you want to get out there.
Yeah. So let me give you fundraising 101, just in case people don't understand this. In the world of building a venture-backed startup, you go out and you meet with lots of investors, dozens, sometimes 100, and you pitch them on, I have this idea for a business. Here's what we've done so far. Here's who's using it. We want some money from you so that we can make it bigger. Mm-hmm. I began that process in 2018 and then really wrapped it up more in 2019. And I met with hundreds of investors over the course of that year and discovered a couple common themes. One, they're mostly white guys, which we don't mind that. It's no big deal, but it is. It means that they come from a certain perspective. They have a certain view of the world. And there are, because we're talking about money, one of the things that I think is just real about money, especially large sums of money, is that there's an inherent power dynamic that exists between the person who's offering money and the person who's asking for money. And that power dynamic creates a lot of opportunity for some not so great behavior to occur, whether that's just not respecting people as much as we should, or not treating each other with as much decorum as we should, or having perhaps false expectations about that transaction that shouldn't exist. So as I'm fundraising, I discover very quickly that I'm being asked a lot of questions that I would consider to be very strange. And, frankly, are questions that in the context of being an employer like you and I are, we know we cannot ask. We cannot ask if somebody is pregnant or planning on becoming pregnant. We cannot ask, how much money their spouse makes. We cannot ask, questions such as, I remember someone asking me once, are you one of those crazy feminists? And I was just like, what the heck does that even mean? So there's certain things that are permitted in the world of venture financing that are just not part of a lot of our other business conversations. It really crossed a line for me when one of the investors I was working with was really harassing me and just would not take no for an answer in any context of any conversation. And so I went to my legal counsel and I said, here's the deal. I plan on building a really big business. I'm going to be talking to investors for a very long time. The next 7 years of my life, at least. I want to make sure that there's some kind of mechanism in place in our business that will provide protection to me and those associated with me so that we can feel safe in these conversations. But in addition to that, the worst thing that could happen is that somebody who's kind of a jerk becomes rich off of our hard work. So we worked together on drafting the candor clause, which is a legal disclosure that goes in the representation and warranties of a financing deal. And it says that the investor has to provide an account of any issues they've ever had with gender discrimination, sexual harassment, or any gender-based discrimination at all that we can then review as the investee to determine if it's a disqualifying factor for them as an investor. The second thing it does is that if there is at any time a failure to disclose that this has occurred, that there is an issue with sexual assault or there is an issue with sexual harassment, that we as a company are able to buy that investor out at the price they paid during the initial financing. And this is key because it prevents that investor from having an increase in value in their investment over time and having that occur because they've hidden something about themselves. And so we used the candor clause in our fundraising. We've now made it open source. It's totally available to any business that wants to use it at candorclause.com. And I'm excited because I think as of last week, there's been about 60 deals that have used it. And I'm optimistic that, this is why Ruth Bader Ginsburg was such a big deal, is because she did the hard and oftentimes very boring and tedious work of figuring out how to use the legal system to protect women. And that has been my greatest insight, is there are ways, because we're running businesses, to use the legal systems that exist in our businesses to advance our agenda and make the world a little bit better.
That's great, Liz. Good for you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Let's move then. I first discovered you. I think I'd heard of Soona because Minneapolis startup, so kind of in our Midwest circles.
Yes.
But then it was a thread, though. It was a Twitter thread, a pretty epic thread that you went on just a few months ago, I think in August, about how your business changed due to COVID, right? So 2020 has been kind of a crazy year. And essentially, you said that overnight you went to $0 of revenue. All studios were closed. Mm-hmm. And without recapping the entire thread, you sort of unpacked all the things you did as a leader, as a co-founder, as an entrepreneur. Tell me a little bit about what happened back in March and what things look like today now in September.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. COVID hit a lot of different businesses differently, but in the context of Soona, we were a retail studio experience. You'd make a booking, you'd come in, you'd have a photo or video shoot, you'd shop online, you'd leave. That was it. We had started building an online experience, and we had recently launched a Shopify app. We literally launched our Shopify app the week of the COVID closures. So timing was nuts. That would allow any business anywhere to remote into our studios and have an experience. But with COVID, we had to close our stores. We had no guidance whatsoever on how to run them safely. And so that was a clear edict. And some of the things that we had to do right away was we had to look at, well, what value are we actually providing here? Are we providing a store or are we providing assets? Well, we're providing assets. Okay, so how do we continue to provide assets safely and in a way that's going to meet customer standards? We went on a 10-day sprint to put studios in our photographers' spare bedrooms and garages and backyards. And what that required our team to do is it required us to take the core technology that existed in our stores, separate it from that retail experience, and then optimize it to exist in other places. I think there was a lot of things I could have done in that moment. I could have waited it out. I could have assumed that we were going to figure it out as a nation. I could have try to figure out how to run the stores more safely. But I think the guiding thing that has always been true for me is asking that question of what is the core of what we are doing here? And if you ask that question, so often, when you go to the gym, you're not going to the gym because you're like, I'm going to walk. You're going, I want to feel good. I'm going to take care of my health. What the core of what you're doing is a much deeper question than just the tasks you're completing. And so I think that was probably one of the guiding things I've done. The other thing that I really try to do is I tried to invest where I thought we were going to have the highest likelihood for breakage. And what I mean by that is the human breakage of sitting in our houses and trying to figure out how to do our jobs and having kids running around and animals running around. And that meant investing in our people. That meant investing in them going to coaching. That meant having mentorship lined up for them. That meant providing more flexible scheduling for the parents, especially. It just meant showing up as a leader in a way that says, I understand you're a whole person and we probably need to make some investments in the whole person, not just the job description. And then finally, I think the thing that I've, listen, this journey was bonkers. We went from $0 to a $2 million run rate in 18 weeks. And we're about to hit $3 million run rate at 22 weeks. I mean, when I tell you that it's been bonkers, I truly mean it has been bonkers. But none of that works. None of it works if I don't show up every single day helping the team have hope about this new vision that we're on. Because it would be very easy for us to just say, well, this is what we're doing right now. This is our temporary situation. This is our get through this moment. Nuh-uh. This is we are rising to the occasion of the opportunity that's being presented to us, and we're going to make the most of what is here for us. And I have to be the one with that message. I can't count on them to
Yep.
figure that out. That's on me. And so I have to count on them to then execute that vision. And that's what they're doing. And it's very exciting. And I feel incredibly grateful that we're still standing, because it could have taken us out, and we've really proven ourselves to be a contender, I think, in this moment.
And maybe even better because of
And
it. I
maybe
mean,
even better. I know.
thriving.
I hate to say better, because we've just created all kinds of other crazy
Sure.
problems, John, but that's who knows.
The one that stuck out to me, I wrote down, was I put myself out there. I wrote memos to the team every week, reminding them why we're here. I went all out on company dress up days. I made videos of myself dancing when we had record sales days. And the lesson was the CEO means cheerlead every opportunity. And I thought that was really great as a leader.
My best dance video was the one where I decided to dance like Elaine. Because I just thought, well, this one will be embarrassing but funny. But it is. Cheerleading every opportunity is looking at the situation and saying, what is the opportunity that we have here together? But also, what opportunity are we creating for ourselves? The team created this moment in time where Soona can be the next level thing. The team optimized our technology so that we can be achieving this. I got to show up every day and say, we're kicking ass. I'm so proud of us. Let's keep going. And it doesn't mean we have to do it in sort of the boring, stuffy way that businesses have always done. Well, here's the quarterly report on our performance.
Yeah.
There is so much room right now for leaders to show up as full people, as people with points of view and with passion and with joy and with a thought process that is full of abundance and openness. And that's what I try to do every day if I can, on my best days.
Yeah, I love that. I agree 1,000%, because I think we don't think of that as the job description, right? You think you have to be doing the finance stuff or the tough business decisions or cast a great, vision, but the cheerleading, it seems to take over. I don't know how big the team is, but that becomes a huge part of your job as a leader.
I mean, we're about to pass 40 people next week. And I hope that when each of them join the company, they really do immediately realize that they've joined something special, because we have invested in each other. And my co-founder, Haley, and I write a Monday memo. She writes a Friday memo, which we call kind of like the leadership sandwich. And my Monday memo is all about, let's set the tone for the week. And her Friday memo is all about, let's celebrate what we just achieved. And like that cadence has been so beautiful for us in this time when people feel a little bit disconnected. We're not able to be together. I really recommend trying it. If you haven't tried bringing a letter of joy to your team, give it a shot.
That's great. And that's a perfect segue, because I also wanted to ask you a little bit about your co-founder relationship. You mentioned it earlier being super special, and I've seen you write about that too. As leaders, we're not just often leading by ourselves. We're usually leading alongside someone else. And in this case, in a startup, a co-founder, and you probably have different strengths and weaknesses, but I saw you have a unique relationship. You recently took like a co-founder retreat kind of to really dig into tough questions. And it sounds like you guys are very open and honest with each other. Talk about that.
Yeah, no, we're so honest with each other. Sometimes I think we're, it's hard for me to describe my relationship with Haley without it sounding fake even to me, because we have so many shared values. So one of the things that I always say, if you're looking for somebody to do business with, you definitely want to look for someone who complements your skill sets, right? But the thing you must share is your value system. So we really do both believe in a world that looks a certain way. We believe in equity. We believe in justice. We believe in paying people a decent wage. We believe in putting good into the world. We believe in using our business to do good, right? And so those things, when you share values, everything then can come back to those values. So, okay, instead of shuttering the business, we want to retain as many jobs as we can. How do we do that? Instead of, maybe going after this opportunity, which isn't in alignment with who we are, let's go after this smaller opportunity that is in alignment with who we are. And so you become much more capable of being honest with each other in that context. The other thing is, I think one of the fastest ways people go wrong in relationships, and this is marriage, friendship, co-founder relationship, is they don't respect the dynamics and they don't protect the dynamics of the relationship. You will never hear me say a bad word about Haley Anderson, ever. No one will. If I have a problem with Haley, I'm going to have a conversation with Haley. If Haley and I are not agreeing about something, we're not going to talk to 20 other people about it. We're talking to each other about it. Creating that safety for each other to say, I will respect the boundaries of this relationship ensures that there is never a conflict that gets larger than our respect and admiration for each other. The final thing I'll say is I heard this quote once. I believe it was by Danny Meyer, who started Shake Shack.
Yeah,
He said, businesses are just people solving problems for other people over and over and over again. And I thought, that can't be true. And then I thought about it some more. I said, oh, actually, that is 100% true. That is just 100. Haley and I are just solving problems for our team over and over and over again, for our customers over and over and over again. Our team is solving problems for our customers over and over. It's just, we're all just solving problems. And so the second you get clear on, we're here to solve something together and we have this shared goal, it becomes a lot easier to just become in total alignment with your business partner.
Anyway, yeah, that's so great. When you say that, it's so obvious too, but as a fellow Midwesterner, I know that's not our strength, right? Just to this kind of open candor, like say exactly what you mean, right? That's not certainly in our DNA. So I respect you for working on that.
It's really hard. Haley and I have a lot of rules of the road. I mean, one of the things is if you feel something, say something. So, if I feel like something's off, I'll just ask, is something off? Or I'm not sure. Another really good rule of the road is what matters is the information, not how it's delivered. And so, if she's not feeling comfortable with saying something to my face, she can text it to me and I can absorb it and think about it, and then we'll figure it out later. I mean, we obsess about the conflict and we don't obsess about getting to resolution. And that is a major unlock for Midwesterners everywhere. Don't worry so much about the conflict. Worry about getting to resolution.
Yeah, that's great. So we'll finish with a few rapid fire, but I want to ask you one more because I really admire your bold vision and you don't hold back. And so what does Soona look like in 5 years? Tell me paint your picture.
Oh, John, I'm going to just tell you the truth. I really hope in 5 years Soona is $1 billion business that is solving the problem of the visual economy for brands everywhere. I truly believe that when we look at the internet, there are very few things that are more present and more constant than the visual ecosystem. And so somebody's going to own that. I hope it's going to be Soona. And for the business at large in 5 years, I really do hope that we are able to continue to execute on a value system of creating great jobs for creative people.
That's great. Well, someone who plays in that space too with Lemonly, when you guys are, if you ever want any tiny little investors, I'm ready because I totally buy that vision.
I'll keep you on speed dial for that, John.
All right, perfect. Well, I'd like to understand what makes leaders tick and kind of what you think. So we'll finish with a few rapid fire questions. I don't know if you're a reader or not, but what's a book you've read or a book you recommend to folks?
I'm a big reader. I love my Kindle. My Kindle is such a great place to be. I just reread the Notorious RBG book. I had to reread it. I thought it's one of those books that just reminds you of how much progress is a process. Progress is a process. It's just so good to be reminded that people can achieve a lot, but they have to be patient and take it over a long time. The other book that I always recommend to people who are interested in leadership is a book called The Big Leap. And it is the book that I turn to again and again and again because it reminds us that we are the only person that can jump off the cliff into our ambition, but we are also the only person who can decide not to go do that too. And so we have to get comfortable with the scope of our ambition and the size of our ambition so that we can go after it. And so The Big Leap will really change your perspective on that question.
I love that. I mean, and that was maybe the one that, you had a great thing going with Mightior, right? You could have kept doing that. But clearly you still felt compelled that there was a bigger leap to take.
Yes, that is exactly right. That book helped me unlock it.
That's great. I might have to be reading that one next. 2020 has been super stressful. How do you unplug? How do you de-stress?
Oh, it has been super stressful. I have kind of my standards, more than anything. I love my animals. I'm a big animal rescue person. We have a dog and 2 cats, and at any point in time, there's like another dog running around. So I
I saw
love
one cat briefly in the background, but that's it so far.
They're great. I love animals and I love working with animals. So I spend a lot of time, I walking my dogs every day. And then of course, the other way that I love to unwind is kind of an unconventional one, but I actually think it's really important for people to figure this out about themselves. I need to be totally quiet and in total silence for at least a half an hour every day. So because I'm talking, I literally, from the time I wake up until the time work is done, I'm talking. And so I do a silent meditation or a silent retreat in my house for 30 minutes every day, usually around lunchtime with no stimuli. And for some people, this sounds like a nightmare. But for me, it allows me to reconnect with my body, reconnect with my mind, reconnect with how I'm feeling. And it's kind of changed my life being able to be in silence every once in a while.
Speaking of Instagram content, I just had some ad targeted at me at this really goofy thing you put around your head for 15 minutes. And it's both like it's complete darkness and then also like complete silence. And the video shows all these people like super. Yeah. So they were targeting me.
I would like, actually.
Just disappear in the abyss. So a question we ask at Lemonly for interviewing: what is your superpower? What's the one thing you do better than everyone else, which makes us Midwesterners brag about ourselves?
It's a good question to ask because we don't do a good job of promoting who we are. My co-founder would tell you that my superpower is really writing great scripts and writing any kind of writing. Like if I need to write something, I'm going to write it concisely, but with a good touch of artistry. I would tell you that my superpower is helping other people see their superpower.
I like that.
I love coaching. I love mentoring. I love guiding. To me, spending time with someone who hasn't quite figured out what they're capable of is the most special time I can spend during the day.
That's cool. Well, you're clearly a very inspiring leader, so I'm sure you do that for your team.
I hope so.
Lastly, we've learned on this show that most leaders have multiple people they've studied or knew closely that inspired them. So who are the leaders and mentors that shaped your life?
Yeah. My grandfather was the first and obvious. I mentioned him earlier. His business was really the start of a lot of my vision for business and how businesses work. And I, to this day, routinely think about his lessons, and I still have the Mel's LaCroix Outfitter flag hanging above my bed. I wake up every morning and I go to bed reminded of what my grandfather did with his business. The other leader that I think has truly shaped my life in some pretty meaningful ways is actually a surprising one for me. It is working with Haley because we are so obviously different people. She is not bombastic like me. She is not a social media person like me. We're so opposite in so many ways, but the quiet way in which she creates just dynamic points of view on the world and can connect dots that other people don't see, it has grounded me in my thinking in a way that is just absolutely transformative. And then the final person is someone that I've never met in person, but who I owe everything to, and that's Barbara Walters. I still, to this day, think about her because I watch The View every day. I never miss The View. And it really comes down to two things. When little girls go out into the world, even now today, they go to school and the walls of our hallways are covered in the presidents. You watch the news and it is the business leaders of America are all very powerful, successful men. And the sports we love are just these powerful exercises in male achievement. We are surrounded by male achievement. Barbara Walters was a beacon of female achievement in my childhood and continues in my life to remind me that there is so much more room for women. There is so much more potential. And I just really think that if I had not had Barbara, I would not have been me. And that's a pretty big gift.
Well, we need to make sure you meet her, and that's got to happen, right?
I don't think it's going to happen. You know, she just turned 90. She's about, I read that she's got dementia. But, you know, someday my backup plan is to get on The View someday. So.
Okay. Well, that's good. Dream big, right? You clearly can do that. Yeah. And as a father of 2 little girls, I really thank you for those opinions, because I agree. That's something we definitely need more of. We just framed a picture of RBG and put it up in our house. So,
well, I mean, amazing, right? To have her to add to the story is so helpful.
Well, Liz, thank you for the time. Thank you for your words and advice around leadership. This was a really fun conversation.
I loved it. Thank you for having me. And I can't wait till I come back in 5 years. How's that?
Deal. Let's do it. Okay.
All right.
All right. You take care. All right, everybody. That was episode 20, our conversation with Liz Giorgi, incredible leader, CEO of Soona, and an all-around just awesome person. I really enjoyed it. I was taking notes. I was like, I got to read that book. I got to have that conversation with my co-founder. I need to share this with my daughters. I just thought it was fantastic. So I hope you enjoyed it too. And remember, we have new episodes of the Leadmore podcast every single Thursday. We have a new one. We're 20 in. We have some incredible leaders to come on the lineup. And so I thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy the show. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and we'll see you next time. Take care.